maybe I need to turn it a little bit this way and then we'll have it perfect. I did actually once try with my big Sony here, and it was back in 2023 to set up for the live streams. But then I've discovered that even with the big connector that cost me a couple of €100, a couple of $100, that you couldn't stream in 4K, only in 1080p, and now it should be able to do it here with 1080p in any case on the phone. So just let me know how that comes out in terms of the quality. It seems to be fine. I'm looking at on a monitor here where I can see all your questions and your comments as they come in. It is another live stream. So besides having messed up which way the camera was facing, I did have it turned on first. I don't know why it switched back again, but we have these technical problems. It is International Women's Day, which is a little bit different to the main topic. The main topic is Iran's war, the operation, the special military operation launched by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu against Iran. It has had consequences throughout the region. Also speak a little bit about how it impacts on the Russo-Ukrainian War. Here are things in Ukraine. Also, if you're traveling to other countries in this region, like maybe you're going to go to Poland or to Latvia and in Estonia, Moldova, what the implications will be. So we've seen this war that started in Iran and what are the general consequences. In particular, is Dubai and the Emirates finished in terms of relocation? Obviously quite a dramatic title, put a dramatic thumbnail as well. However, there will be some change, I think, to the status of countries like the United Arab Emirates, whether that's Dubai, which is the most famous, or Abu Dhabi, or other countries in the region like Doha and Qatar, and maybe Saudi Arabia, which has been opening up, becoming a little bit more popular to visit at least, if not necessarily for relocation. I have had clients who spent part of the year in Dubai, not so many. I did get a few inquiries about my services from guys who are based in Dubai who were from Europe or from North America. It was about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago at this point. They all seemed to come in the space of a few months and then didn't get too many inquiries. Again, I did have some consulting calls as well with guys who were based part of the year in Dubai and then wondering whether it would make sense for them to relocate to somewhere in this region that I specialize in. So as I said, it is International Women's Day, and it's a very important day if you have a romantic relationship for sure with someone, whether they're Ukrainian, whether they're Polish, whether they're from the Baltic states, whether they're from Romania. I'm pretty sure it's celebrated there. Definitely in Moldova. Going to be celebrating Kazakhstan as well. I was looking on Instagram. Every girl was to show off how many flowers that she got today. So for sure it was a day to give flowers. Not too late to at least send a message, probably too late to order flowers. Basically in this region it is more a day of giving flowers to women than International Radical Feminist Day is at times it seems in, say, Western Europe and North America. So that's normally the main emphasis. So definitely an important day. Plasmium Bereznia, trying to get it right in Ukrainian for today. So I'm here in Odesa, and just to give you a little update, Odesa in the last week since this Epic Fury, that's the name of the operation Donald Trump has given it. Since that has started, I've noticed, and it could be just coincidence, a drop in Russian drone attacks and ballistic missile attacks, at least here in Odesa. They did strike other cities in Ukraine and kill civilians, as is their normal behavior and, well, criminal behavior towards Ukraine. But it is interesting at a time when so many drones have been fired by Iran that Russia doesn't seem to be firing as many here. It doesn't mean that necessarily they're giving the drones to the Iranians to fire at US military bases or at Israel or just at the other Arab countries. There's also been some accusations that they fired drones at Azerbaijan, at Turkey. So definitely it is an interesting coincidence to see that happen. So normally what I do with these live streams is kind of a bit of a show. My original idea with doing these live streams was that since I'm here in Ukraine, I could do a live stream on the street in real time and show what's going on in the background. We've now gone through 4 years since the invasion in 2022. So when I'm shooting these in the evening, it does seem a little bit more like a show, like maybe a vodcast show in that sense. So if you prefer this format where I put it on a tripod, and I may even go back and buy the little connector, because that costs a few $100 for my Sony. If I find out that they can stream in 4K, I will go invest in that. If you like this format, I've had it on Sundays in the evening. Normally when I'm with my in-person clients, I'm not available on Sundays, but seeing as that hasn't been the case for the last few weekends, it is possible for me to do. So if you like this format, then write me a message in the comments and say that you like it, or shoot me an email afterwards or a message. If you're watching this replay, you can write it in the comment section as well. I will consider maybe making this a permanent fixture, at least for a while, to do this, now that I'm discussing a little bit more about geopolitics on this channel as well. So I will give a presentation, not sure how long it'll be, probably half an hour. In the meantime, you can write your comments and your questions as I go through the live stream, and let me know what your thoughts are on the current war that is going on in the Middle East and the consequences for here in the Russo-Ukrainian War and the wider region in terms of relocation. So whether this will have a big effect on Dubai and Dubai's reputation in particular, so that's the main hub in the region that has been attacked, that has a lot of Western Europeans and say North Americans, basically people from all over the world. They're not even probably the biggest contingent at all. Like most people who live in Dubai, at least having been there, seem to be from Pakistan or India, that kind of region, not from Western Europe and North America. But there are many influencers who go there. So, and in particular, there are a lot of girls who go from Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Poland, the 3 Baltic states. They go and they hang out in Romania as well. It's become very popular for them to visit or to move to and do different things there. Some of the things are a bit dodgy that get come up on the internet about what they're doing there. Some of them, at the same time, I think it's always been interesting that it has become a little bit of a safety valve or an alternative destination for many women who are definitely seeking a glamorous lifestyle, and as an alternative to North America or Western Europe, especially where there are many rich men who are willing to sponsor them. So we'll be discussing that. In terms of a little bit of housekeeping before we get into it, created a new page. It's down below in the description to the live stream, where I put together some resources if you're starting out your journey, you're new to my content. Maybe this is the premier channel for relocation in this region, or coming to have time, spend some time at least, not normally for the weekend warriors, although they can also get value out of my content. I have especially a huge library of videos, vlogs, advice videos about traveling or relocating to countries like Ukraine, and since 2022 I've expanded that to Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, 3 Baltic states, Poland, Kazakhstan and Moldova. I have a few older videos from Romania, not sure how relevant they're going to be. Maybe the one where I go to Transylvania, that's nice to look at and get an idea of what it was like, at least back in the day, to travel to Romania. So you can go and check them out. I have all that put together on a page on my website. It's conorklein.com/resources. It's there linked in the description to this live stream, so you can go check that out. There I also have my language programs. I did finally send out the first part of You Speak Ukrainian Secrets, my Ukrainian program. So I am producing that at the moment. So if you're interested in joining at this very late stage, because we'll start the live streams for that pretty soon, now that I've actually got out the first part of it, going to get some feedback on that incorporated. So in the next few weeks we'll be getting started with the first live streams. Then also on that resources page there is a enrollment option in Learn Speak Ukrainian Secrets, where we're going to start with basic Ukrainian, bring you up to that first level, get you started. Also, if you are coming to this region, I have put together 2 guides that are going to help you with traveling here, one for Moldova and one for Ukraine. They're also linked on the resources page, and there's direct links to invest in them also down below. So the main benefit of that is my hospitality guide that I have for 5 cities in the Ukrainian version. So for here in Odesa, Kyiv, Lviv, Uzhhorod, and Chernovtsi. And then in the Moldovan one, it is the capital Chisinau. I spent 4 summers going to literally hundreds of places and top 10 vineyards in Moldova, because they are renowned for their viticulture there just north of here. Well, 1 hour from the Moldovan border. In reality, it takes another hour to get across it, and another 2.5 hours to Chisinau, the capital. So a lot of guys are interested in actually both of those guys together if they are coming to Odesa, for example, because they would fly into Chisinau, or they just want to experience Moldova as well. So if you are starting out your journey, you're interested in the region, these are some great resources. I have all the playlists put together there. You can go to that one page, and then it'll help you a lot with getting started. If you're more experienced, you're interested in going deeper in terms of coming to the region, there are 2 options how I help my clients. One is consulting. So if you're thinking you're at a fairly early stage, but you've gone through the basic research and you have some pertinent questions that you want to have answered, whether it is about relocation, travel, networking, or relationships. Maybe you have been lured in by some PPL site, paper letter site on the internet, or a dating site, then you can reserve a consulting call, and we'll jump with that together and figure out your strategy for success in this region. And then I have my flagship in-person immersion called the New York Experience, rebranded from the Zara Experience in the last couple of years with this invasion here in Ukraine. Zara isn't the best term to be using. It's a little bit too imperial since Vladimir Putin seems to want to return to those 19th century type of behavior. So there we will go to a city in the region that I think, well, that we agree on that it's best fit for us to go together to. If it is indeed a good fit for us to even work together in the first place, it's because it is by application only. You'll find details down below, and then the application form there. Fill that out, and then I will review it and come back to you. But the main benefits of coming with me in person is that you'll have a mentor who can help you implement everything. It will really save you so much time in terms of figuring everything out. You'll have curated experience. It's a bespoke package. Every client is different what they want to achieve. If you're coming here in terms of building a network so that you can do more business. Most of my clients are single men, so also we would go out and socialize at the hotspots of whatever city it is with my crew. It will be an unforgettable experience. This is the region of the world with, in my opinion, on average, the most beautiful women, and maybe the values and the culture is going to be a better fit for you than maybe where you're watching this from. So you can go down below and read more about it and apply, and maybe be the 2 of us hanging out somewhere in this region pretty soon. And obviously you don't have to worry about getting scammed if you're with me, because, well, I'll make sure that doesn't happen as long as you're listening to me and don't do something that gets yourself in trouble. Regardless of my advice, I can't actually sequester you, unfortunately. But in general, these are the huge benefits. It'll just save you a huge amount of time. When I first came to this region, I did not have anyone. I had no network here. It's very easy to end up building nomads or end up stuck in some sort of expat bubble. It's better than nothing, but at the same time, it's not really going to be type of premier experience that you can get in terms of experience in the region. I used to come quite regularly. Many years ago, it was over 10 years ago, and I have to start fresh every time. None of my colleagues or friends who work wanted to come to this region, mainly to Ukraine. And I did have great experiences, but I wasted so much time. I had so many nights out that didn't work out. I didn't make friends so easily. It took basically years of traveling here to finally build up a network. And if I had the option of investing in a mentor who was going to help me on that journey back in the day, I would have jumped on it, because yeah, I had also limited time in the beginning to travel. So yeah, wasting maybe 2 of your 3 weeks figuring everything out and building up experience, traveling to maybe the wrong cities, realizing there's nothing going on there, or it's a bad fit for me, I had to do it all myself, and it took a huge amount of time. So if you want to save yourself the time and waste emotions maybe in the wrong women or with the wrong people, then apply down below and you too can live the New Europe experience, because this is the region that I think is your elite path to freedom. It is the West, part of the collective West, but it is a part of the West that is growing economically and culturally. I think, you know, it is a lot more interesting. It's good to get in early on a rising tide rather than stuck in a more stagnant Western Europe. And there are a huge number of opportunities. I'm going to actually go through some of them in the presentation as well, because they come up with the Russo-Ukrainian War and this war in Iran. And yeah, definitely in terms of coming here as a single guy, this is the best region, bar none, in the world. And I will deal a little bit with the alternatives, because I know that some people are partial to places in Latin America and Southeast Asia as well. I've been to them, and I still rate this place as #1, but it is not so easy just to show up here. There is less foreigner factor, and in general, if you don't have a plan, you may have a disappointing experience. But we'll go into some of those points during the presentation, and during the Q&A, go more detailed. So keep your questions coming in. I'm seeing them here appearing on the screen now. I have it set up a little more like a show and have the camera facing the right way, but it's always going to happen probably on the first iterations of any changes. So let's see. This war, I gave the title and a very dramatic thumbnail with "Is Dubai Finished?" and what it means for Ukraine, Russia, and New Europe in general. So this war, we won't turn this into a hardcore geopolitics channel. I do have another one for that I will get back to producing content for in the next week. This channel I want to discuss, now that we have more of this show format, combine geopolitics, relocation, relationship, and networking advice and explains the intersections of those different themes and how they all play in, make it it's a lot more intellectual format than you're going to see in other channels that are discussing this region in general, unless it's our hardcore geopolitics channel. And as I said, I'll keep it a little bit more user-friendly for those who are not into geopolitics or international relations. I actually have a background in international relations. I studied at Johns Hopkins University at SAIS. Many of the political commentators who discussed the Russo-Ukrainian War actually went to my alma mater, discovering it's kind of coming out. Some of them put their diplomas in the background on their live streams. I haven't been able to figure out, or they mention it casually, so I've been able to see that we all went to the same university different years. To make it interesting, when we have our reunions, I'll have to figure out when, well, I'll write them in emails at a certain point. So Iran, we obviously have this war, Operation Epic Fury, started off just over a week ago. And my reaction initially was, when I'm examining it first from perspective of Ukraine here in the Russo-Ukrainian War, that this is probably on average going to be better for Ukraine than for Russia, because Iran and Russia are allied, and wasn't looking good for Iran. The supreme leader, Ayatollah, was assassinated, and a lot of their infrastructure has been destroyed. So that didn't seem to be looking good for Russia, in the sense that they were in danger of losing another ally. They've lost recently Assad in Syria, and, well, the president of Venezuela, Maduro, was abducted by the US. It's the same regime in charge, in effect, just a different part of the regime has taken over, but they're probably going to be more pliant with the wishes of the United States, considering that Maduro was abducted by the US, and now we've seen the supreme leader of Iran assassinated. So if Russia were to lose another ally, the medium-term consequence, maybe not exactly the short run, because Russia's learned a lot and extracted a lot of value from Iran since 2022, especially with drone warfare, and because the Iranians were ahead of Russia on that, and also some other material. So losing another ally is going to weaken Russia, probably economically, and also in terms of their power projection and status, and really resign them to being a regional power as opposed to a global player, outside the fact that Russia still has an extremely large nuclear arsenal and a seat on the UN Security Council, if the UN really matters so much nowadays. However, there are some other consequences. In the short term, at least, we've seen a spike in the oil prices. This is good for Russia because Russia's economy is in a lot of trouble and the oil price was very low. So as a result, Russia's economy was going to decline even faster. And if they run out of money, then their ability to prosecute the war comes under a lot of strain. They'll have to ask the Russian people to make a lot more sacrifices and, you know, to accept more cuts back home, as they have already been doing. The Russian economy is basically in a recession already, so this spike in the oil price is kind of like a godsend to Vladimir Putin in one sense in the short run. Of course, if this war in the Middle East comes to a conclusion relatively quickly and the oil prices go back to what they were before, then it'll just be a short-term spike and a long-term problem for Russia. On the other hand, there are some other consequences, like the amount of air defense that's been used not just by Israel and the US in this war, but also by other allies of the United States, so who use things like Patriot missiles, like the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. They also have them, and they are in limited supply, and Ukraine also needs them, so this would mean that there will be more pressure on getting Ukraine resupplied with those weapons. On the flip side, those countries now realize that they need drone interceptors, and guess which country that they are in theory on the same side of the ledger with that is the best in the world at producing those. I hear them whiz past my window here. Well, not this week on a nightly basis because it's been a little bit less intense in terms of Russian attacks, but in the last few months, it is the Ukrainians. They produce out of necessity, they have innovated and they produce drone interceptors, and they are probably the leading country in the world at this point with that. So those countries are going to need at least an agreement with Ukraine to get that technology, same with the US, same with Israel. So this obviously is something of huge value that Ukraine can barter for something else in exchange. I have been talking on this channel since the summer about the fact that the defense industry here in Ukraine right now and after war is going to be a huge business, because Russia and Ukraine have been fighting the war of the future, even though it's today basically. There's been huge innovation, especially in drone warfare. And considering that Russia is not allied with the US, not allied with Europe, it's a direct adversary in effect, even if the White House is particularly friendly. This White House is incredibly friendly under the circumstances to Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin in general. For Western Europeans and Americans to catch up with the evolution in drone warfare, they will need to collaborate with the Ukrainians. So that is something that we're seeing. So that's something that's, you know, a positive coming out of the war, I guess, looking at it cynically for Ukraine, but also there are positives for Russia and minuses for Ukraine and minuses for Russia. So there is a combination. It's not really clear to me right now whether it's going to be good for Ukraine overall or good for Russia. Obviously, that's a binary option. It's a zero-sum game in terms of the Russo-Ukrainian War. So we'll just have to see how this plays out. It doesn't look like the Trump administration really has much of a plan that they've articulated, at least, because every day seems to change and kind of contradict itself. So they seem to be preparing that this war could go on for a long time now. But we do have the midterm elections coming up in the US, and I would be surprised if they were still going to drag out the war for 6 months, especially at that raised energy prices, because that would affect the chances for the Republican Party in terms of getting a good result in those midterms. So I can't, that would seem odd, but you never know what Donald Trump and his administration are going to do. So what I wanted to focus on a bit more than the Russo-Ukrainian War per se in this live stream is something that has been a consequence, that is the dramatic scenes in cities like Dubai of debris falling when they shoot down a drone or a ballistic missile, or actually the drone deliberately hitting, or a missile actually hitting somewhere in the city of Dubai. Those have been Abu Dhabi, Doha, and in Bahrain. I guess the capital is Manama, is that how you pronounce it? Forgotten. I've never been to Bahrain, but I think the capital is called something like that, or is that the old British name? Yeah, it's the capital, Manama, okay. And also somewhere in Saudi Arabia, I saw that they had similar issues. The United Arab Emirates, in particular Dubai, has marked itself quite successfully to foreigners, whether they happen to be from this region here or from Western Europe or North America. It's very popular, especially in the influencer world here on YouTube, to go to Dubai because they have no income tax or very low taxes in general. It's easy to get a visa there, and you have, it's a first world country. That's a bit of an understatement. Obviously, infrastructure in general in Dubai is pretty incredible. It has a great climate, I'd say, in the winter in terms of has nice weather. I think it's way too hot in the summer. And I think culturally it's extremely limited. It's very bling bling, very Nova-ish. And I spent a few months there myself. I had a better time than I expected, so I was very happy with my experience there. I did live in the lap of luxury as well. But for me, I did not really feel attracted to residing in the United Arab Emirates. Also, even though it's very tax friendly, it's extremely expensive to reside there. So it just depends also a good bit on what your purposes to be there are. If you are working in some industry that you're making millions, then it could be very interesting. If you are more middle class, going to Dubai and not paying the taxes, but then you've got to pay so much just for your living expenses, it probably doesn't make much sense. And they also mark themselves very heavily on stability. It's effectively a police state, it's a monarchy, and most people are fine with that because there isn't so much, there's almost no petty crime in Dubai. Good luck protesting about anything in Dubai, and then obviously it becomes an issue, or if you actually get into some sort of dispute with a Emirati citizen, then you're in a lot of trouble because the way the courts work there, having spoken to friends who've seen what goes on, it is extremely difficult once you have an Emirati citizen involved in a case. You're in basically almost certainly going to lose it. So there are a lot of downsides that never really get talked about because of the nature of what the Emirates is like you can't have video calls with even Telegram, even though the guy who runs Telegram is even based in the UAE, because they want to eavesdrop on your communications. So there are a lot of restrictions to living there, but they have successfully marketed themselves that, hey, you come to this place and it's basically a police state where you're not going to have much freedom of expression in terms of if you ever criticize the government or anything that's going on here. But at this other flip side of that is that, well, there's no petty crime because it is a police state. This reminds me a little bit of Belarus, but Belarus with sunshine and beaches, as opposed to Minsk in the winter where it's gray. And yeah, a lot of people bought into the stability part rather naively, because it has been clear for quite a while that the United Arab Emirates is not some neutral country. It's a major regional player. And they did have an incident even back in 2022 where I think the airport in Abu Dhabi was hit anyways by a drone from the Houthis. So they are involved in regional wars. It's not Switzerland where they're officially neutral. And it is an extremely volatile region of the world. Being so close to Israel, to Iran, to Lebanon, all these countries are not that far away. Like Iran is basically across the Straits of Hormuz, a neighbor. So was probably going to happen at a certain point that they were going to hit with this regional instability. But the fact that we've seen so many people having to call their embassies, get expatriation flights out. I know a Moldovan lawyer who is even trapped there. Now she's back in Moldova. The government arranged for her to get out and to get home. And we've seen these scenes where obviously drones are landing and in civilian areas. And even if it's just the debris from a falling drone, that is pretty terrifying, especially if you're not psychologically prepared for it. Obviously, I'm here in Ukraine. We've had 4 years of war. Well, of the extended war, at least. The war itself is going on for over 11 years, or is even 12 years at this point. Yeah, it's 12 years since Russia invaded, starting with Crimea and the Donbass region back in 2014. So you do get psychologically used to it, and not that it's ever going to be something you can blasé about if you're right there when obviously a missile or drone lands somewhere and causes destruction and probably injures and kills people. But for people who went to Dubai, it's particularly shocking. So we're going to see what this will mean in terms of reputation of Dubai. Will people be so keen to reside there if this is going to become a regular occurrence where they're going to have drones going off, the airport's going to be closed, and it resembles more like maybe living not even recently in Israel, but back in the day in Israel, where they were somewhat used to this kind of situation, or here in Ukraine. Not many people, I think, who reside in Dubai, decide to live there, want to have a situation where their security is not so obvious. So it's kind of the trade-off that they were looking at before. You have a police state that makes sure there's almost no petty crime, where then the kind of quid pro quo is, well, you can't criticize the government trying to get anything changed if you end up in dispute with a local citizen. It's also almost impossible to become a citizen in the Emirates. It's not like you live there for 5 years and you're an Emirati citizen. It is possible theoretically, but it's extremely rare that you can naturalize. So basically, you're living somewhere that if you ever have a dispute with the minority people, because it is a small minority, or even citizens, that you're in a lot of trouble, because you're almost certainly going to lose, and you can't criticize or organize to change anything. And now you're going to have rockets coming in for Iran. It's also connected to the United Emirates, the Emirates' foreign policy and their orientation. So all these things play in, and I would expect to see it take a hit somewhat. Obviously, it depends on how long this instability goes on for, how long this war with Iran goes on for, and what turns out to be the case. If, for example, Iran stops firing munitions because they just run out of either the launchers or they can't get resupplied in terms of the rockets and the drones themselves, then maybe this will just be a short-term issue, and then maybe in 2 years people have forgotten about the instability again, all feel comfortable moving back to Dubai. But it's definitely going to affect people's perception of living there after this experience. So it will be a net minus. How big a minus is unclear at the moment. As I said, many Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Kazakhstanis, Moldovans, even Poles, people from the Baltic states go to Dubai. It's a very popular place for especially women to go on a holiday to. It's quite glamorous. The weather is nice. There's a lot of wealth there, and in particular for the kind of more gold digging type, then there's a lot of gold to be dug in the Emirates. The one piece of feedback I got from guys who are either clients who've been to Dubai or guys who contacted me who were based in Dubai and interested in New Europe was that they consider the dating scene to be absolutely terrible, in spite of the fact that there are so many beautiful women who flock to Dubai, because there's just so much gold digging going, and if you don't want a gold digger, then it can be quite tricky there. The mentality and the mindset of living in Dubai, a place that is uber flashy and attracts women who are interested in that. So it just depends, obviously, if you're looking for or find with a gold digger, then that's your spot, a glamorous gold digger. Definitely you're going to find a lot of them, especially who are originally from around this neck of the woods in Dubai. So will these girls be as keen to moving to Dubai now when they see all this going on? Again, it will depend on the long-term effects, but for sure, if you were if you decided to move from Ukraine to Dubai and now you're under drone attack, well, yeah, if your main motivation was because of the war to move there, then probably you might as well move back at this stage, because you're going to be under drone attack in Dubai. Being a little bit facetious in saying that, because obviously I don't think after 4 years that some of the girls who were Ukrainian and live in Dubai are really there because of the war per se. It's not the only reason. Obviously, there are other reasons to be there. So that is what we see with Dubai. It changes the calculation in terms of relocation, and it is kind of a safe haven. It's also a bit like Monaco used to be known as a sunny place for shady people. Maybe they won't feel that it's worth it if they are under rocket attack. Again, a lot of this will depend on how long it goes on for. I've already covered the impact that we can say so far with respect to the Russo-Ukrainian War. Just to recap what I've said in the last few live streams and one that I made about this topic, you can go and look at the past ones. I'll have them linked down below or on a playlist somewhere. In any case, I have a background in international relations. I worked as a lawyer also at the European Commission, and I've been living here in this region for over a decade, basically, and on and off here in Ukraine. I was here for 2 years during the COVID pandemic, for example, and now I spend about half my time in Ukraine. I think it's about a 50-50 in 2026 where we see some sort of pause in the fighting. But this will increase quite a lot for 2027. I would put it at 80%. Doesn't mean necessarily there's going to be a long-term resolution of this war that's been going on since 2014 in some shape or form, but with the Russian economy in so much trouble, well, now they got a little bit of a reprieve with the spike in the oil price in the last week. But in principle, even with that spike in the oil price, it's still in a lot of trouble regardless. Don't think that 2027 it's going to be sustainable for Russia unless they make really difficult decisions that would risk the legitimacy of the Putin regime in the Kremlin, because he can do things like real seizing people's assets, but of course that would make him very unpopular, risk a palace coup. He could also go for general mobilizations, force millions of Russians to go and die without having volunteered for the military. They did that back in 2022 with a partial mobilization. Again, that could turn out to be very unpopular, as did the previous one. So if Vladimir Putin is not willing to make extremely unpopular decisions that might undermine his position of power in the Kremlin, then it will be very hard for him to bankroll the war in 2027. But we'll see what this war does in terms of the oil price. If it goes on for 6 months, a year, there's a super high oil price, well, obviously that will buy him another 6 months, a year. But 1 week is not really going to change the dynamics that much. So just back to Dubai, I call it the Dubai magnet. And it's like these attractive, ambitious women from the countries I mentioned, like Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Kazakhstan. They come there because there are a lot of guys with high incomes, even for themselves. They can get, because I listen to some of the influencers, they can live luxury lifestyles. They can even make high incomes themselves and then base themselves there. Maybe for a lot of Russian, attractive to get your money out of Russia, especially in the current circumstances with the current government. And the number of rich men, and in turn, especially the number of rich simp men, it has a huge concentration in Dubai, from what I can see. Just guys who are willing to spend a lot of money on women in general, women who are open to being in some shape or form bought, maybe not formally, but for sure there was a reputation for a huge amount of vice in Dubai when I was there. Obviously, it doesn't mean that every girl from this region is selling herself in Dubai, but there is a certain segments doing that. But in general, definitely the gold digging type is kind of the, I guess, reputation for Dubai in general. So if you're trying to avoid that, then probably not the spot for you. They were also attracted by the fact it's very easy to get a visa. As I said, it was kind of the safety valve for girls who wanted to leave and live the glamorous lifestyle abroad, because going to Western Europe is hard to get a visa. It's increasingly going to be hard for them to get a visa if they're Russian, for example, or Belarusian. Belarusian, not so hard to actually get a visa to the rest of Europe. They can go to Poland, Lithuania, for example. But for Russians, for sure, same with North America, getting a visa, move there, unless it's the fiancé visa, which still is possible, then it is extremely difficult. So Dubai was this place to go to, super glamorous, lots of rich men willing to throw lots of money around, and warm all year, a bit too hot for my liking in the summer, lacking in any real culture. I did do, the trips out to the sand dunes, whatever, but for me, no, it's like a bling bling city, Nova rich. But if you're into that, especially the Instagram kind of economy and influencers, some of them are based there also from the region. So this is why they were going there en masse, either to relocate or just to take a trip and a holiday. So that is somewhere where, if you look at where they might emigrate to, that possibly is going to be less attractive, and they may even come back to their own countries or try even harder to come to Western Europe, just so you know. So that might be a little bit of a reverse, especially if a lot of wealthy men or just wealthy people in general as a result start to shun the Emirates. It could very easily go in reverse, because there is a bit of a property bubble, or the price of property has increased quite a lot there. So if that starts to go in reverse, people pull their money out, then you have the opposite effect. So not expecting Dubai to collapse, but I think this kind of image that they've built up as a stable, safe country is very seriously undermined by what we've seen in the last week. And it's not just come out of nowhere, it is a volatile region. They are a big regional player. So that bright light of Dubai in terms of attracting many of the most beautiful women, for sure, from this region, and from Russia and from Belarus, may be going into reverse slightly. So just something to think about. If you have been spending time in the Emirates, let me know what the last week has been like, and also what you think there will be an impact on Dubai, what your perspective is. I do have a client who was in Dubai recently, and he was telling me it's like huge number of attractive Russian women, even compared to before. It seemed there were just so much more, especially with the economic and political situation in Russia, probably more the economic situation. They have relocated there. So perhaps that's going to go in reverse, or they're going to go somewhere else. Maybe there will be somewhere else that is a hotspot. If you were thinking of relocating to the Emirates, then also let me know how you feel seeing what's going on, whether it makes you reconsider. Does it make this region relative now not seem so bad, considering that other regions are going to be affected, and yeah, whether you also think that somewhere like Southeast Asia or Latin America is a better region to move to. If we're living this new world where there's no rules-based order, then very quickly we could also see conflicts break out. We saw some of them almost break out a year ago in Southeast Asia. Very quickly, it could be several wars there. Africa is like a complete tinderbox up, and you know, all those borders are basically colonial borders, and people live on either sides, and the possibility of widespread wars across the continent of Africa is very high. Even Latin America, they have fought wars in the past. In the past, many of those countries, border wars, so many of those could flash up again. So it doesn't mean that just because today it's all safe in, I don't know, Cartagena and Colombia, just picking random places, or I think somewhere that's very heavily marketed is Paraguay, for example. I'm not tempted to move to Paraguay. I've been there once. It's definitely not for me. But yeah, they also have big wars in the past. So would there be a return to that possibly, even in Latin America? Something to think about if you're considering where to spend your time and maybe even relocate. So that is what I wanted to say in terms of the war that we're seeing in the Middle East. I guess overall, will this benefit relocation to this region? Maybe slightly. Maybe some of the women will come back. Maybe some of the guys who are based in Dubai are going to think, well, if there's going to be drones landing outside my building in downtown Dubai, then maybe I might as well live in Latvia or in Poland, because even if there's a risk of Russia doing something, well, I already see their allies firing rockets at me, so it's not really going to be much different. Well, then we could have a conversation together if that were the case. So that is what I wanted to say about what's been going on with respect to the war in Iran and how it will impact the geopolitical situation more on a global. Well, I kept it regional in this discussion, and also a little bit more about how it will affect lifestyle there and here in New Europe. So that's the region that I've defined as between Germany and Russia. Normally I'm helping my clients with Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Mainly it's Latvia in the Baltic states. Then Poland, it's always been Warsaw, and I had one of my clients who went to Kraków, but I didn't help him with that. And then Chisinau, Moldova, Almaty and Astana in Kazakhstan, and still here in Ukraine. There is more interest in Ukraine compared to definitely 2 years ago, but even last year, I think many guys are realizing that the statistical risk of being in the wrong place at the wrong time is 1 in a million per day. When I looked up ChatGPT during the summer, I wonder what it's like in Dubai at the moment. It's probably not that dramatically different, so probably a little bit different, but not dramatically in light of what's happened in the last week, if we were to calculate it from there. So the issue is not really that it's super dangerous to come to a city like Odesa, Kiev, Lviv, definitely not Uzhhorod and Chernosy, and there's almost no impact from the war in terms of public safety. It's more the psychological impact of being here, having air alerts, and yeah, maybe you see something, an explosion, you're going to hear an explosion, especially in the center of Odessa if they attack the port, for example, and whether you're willing to deal with that. Also, we have curfew everywhere in the country except for Uzhhorod, officially from midnight to 5 a.m. So places close earlier. Here in Odessa and in Kiev, it is quite strict, the curfew, in terms of places will close. In Lviv, for example, places are open. Basically, there are places open all night, so it's probably the party center of Ukraine at the moment, which was never the case before. It was always a place to go for a weekend. There were lots of parties, but now there's probably more partying going on in Lviv than there is in Kiev or in Odessa. Odessa will be amazing during the summer for sure with the beach clubs. They'll be all packed and pumped during the day. Everything just starts a lot earlier. There's no partying from until 6 in the morning. Well, you can't party until 6 in the morning, but you have to be in a club that's inside, right? That's the thing, you can't be outside. So the beach clubs will all be closed at night, but the people will just party basically from the late afternoon onwards. So it is definitely going to be interesting this summer to come to Odessa. And if you are coming to Ukraine and you are looking to have more of a social life and go out, then definitely I recommend Lviv at the moment. It's definitely the spot to go to. So let me just, before I come to your well, actually, maybe I'll come to your comments and your questions now as a little bit of a pause, and then I'll come to the other topics that I wanted to broach in today's live stream. So Josh says, Buongiorno, Conor. Buonasera. What type of watch do you have? I have a Tag Heuer. You can have a look at it there. How do you teach men to be sociable when video game and social media addiction is so intense? Yeah, most of the guys that come with me in person, there's a reason why I have a screening process. So you have to be a good fit, you have to be willing to learn, you have to be coachable, and if you're looking for a transformation in terms of your confidence and your social skills, it's also something that I help clients for. It's more refining. It's not something, this is not a pickup program or something like that. It's not matchmaking. It's more about being able to get into the right social circles and be able to develop yourself both personally and in a broader sense in the region. That's going to help you with making the key friendships and business relationships as well as the romantic relationships that, whether that's a one-night stand or you want to have a long-term relationship and get married. I should say, since you reminded me, that I mentioned last week one of my other clients was getting married, yet another one, to a Ukrainian. And yeah, he had his wedding yesterday actually, so I was looking at the photos yesterday. Unfortunately, I didn't go to North Carolina for the wedding, but yeah, it's also something that I guess I like to brag about. It's my clients in general, they marry or in long-term relationship with extremely beautiful women. And I remember a matchmaker I met back, we're probably talking 2019, and I told him how many of my clients get married, and I don't have any sort of matchmaking. It's just because they come with me and they develop the networks and the social acumen to succeed and develop a long-term relationship, also romantically. And when he heard how many of my clients got married, even back then, he was like, wow, I would definitely talk about that on my channel if it were me, because he seemed very impressed by it. And he was running a matchmaking service, which says a lot about the matchmaking industry. I'll have to comment on that a little bit more because there's a big development. We'll get to that in a little bit. So video game and social media addiction. Well, social media, you want to be a producer as well as a consumer. Like, have a good Instagram, be creating content, even if it's just for your Instagram stories, so that you can display your value. It's not to fool women. I see a lot of services now in this dating industry. They're like trying to create content that's basically fake to impress women. It's like, some of them might work in the short term, but women are just going to catch up with it and be clued into it. And the other issue is, like, if you do fool the woman, I watched a dating coach who was saying that some of these clients, one of these clients in particular, has like a rock star Instagram profile. He doesn't get anywhere on the dates because he's basically catfished the women in a sense, because they think they're going on a date with this super high level guy, and then he doesn't have the mental framework, because the most important part of being attractive is not the only thing, but it's a huge part of it, is your charisma and your personality and your ability to communicate and build rapport and then escalate that to a romantic relationship. And if you don't have those skills and you don't have the status in particular that you faked on your Instagram, then on the dates you're just going to end up in a lot of very little possibility of it working out. It's not zero, but it's very low, and you're going to be wasting your resources. So I never tell guys to make something up or misrepresent, but obviously you want to present yourself in a good light. I compare Instagram to being like a dating CV to a certain extent. Like, you don't want to go for a job interview and have it lied to get in and just be completely or get the job and then you were completely unqualified and you're a disaster. You want to be present yourself in a good light that is going to communicate the potential, the value of being in your lifestyle, basically. That is what it is key for. So you can communicate a huge amount. It's a great, like I'm just thinking the word pre-Instagram and then post-Instagram, it really is like a game changer because it just allows guys who are living a life, have value to offer, to be able to demonstrate it and get ahead of the competition because most men are completely clueless about what they demonstrate with Instagram. So I don't find it a big problem when a video game addiction. I guess those kind of people probably don't apply to me. They're probably probably going to a matchmaker maybe, or they're going to matchmakers can't be just I don't like to talk about it so much anymore, but they can help guys who are maybe late 40s upwards who don't mind a small age gap, so women been over 40, and they could probably help there. But it's like online dating in general is not where women with options hang out in general. Even Raya, my clients who are on it, which is obviously a huge upgrade from Tinder, they all were pretty disappointed with it in the end. They're just like, well, in real life, I just meet more attractive and more interesting women. So yeah, women just really, they hang out on Instagram. They're not really going to be on dating apps, and they're definitely not going to be hanging out on matchmakers in general if they're attractive women under 35. I did go and look at Antoine's website, and it was like 92% of women were 92% of women were 35 years of age and upwards, which makes sense. I also had seen other ones like Match Guarantee, someone sent it to me years ago. It's also mainly that age demographic, which is fine. They tend to quite often use photos, not calling out any of them in particular, but in general I see some of them, they use photos of women who look a lot younger than that, who are super attractive. This is not representative of, like, that'll be a huge red flag. Why would a woman like that be at a matchmaker, right? Men, there's something wrong with her. She either is super, super keen to emigrate. That'd be the only real legitimate reason. Otherwise, there's something off. There's something off. So let the buyer beware. So I see, Josh is in the house. Congrats to the bride and groom and to you. Yeah, well, I mean, since this isn't the main topic of the main goal, it's not the metric I use for success in terms of how I help my clients. It is great to see nonetheless. And yeah, the level of the women in terms of my clients are married or have families with models. That seems to be not everybody, but such a huge number of them. It's pretty phenomenal. So to see another wedding going on, and I played a small role in it. It's not like I do everything. I'm the sole reason, but it's nice to see that I was able to make a contribution with my advice. And yeah, maybe those are more the realistic. I always thought about, is it worth getting testimonials for this if this is not the main metric. I do have from back in the day, like with Juan, who got married, came with me to Minsk, because Minsk was so different pre-2020. And maybe that was even a misleading testimony in the sense that he only came for, we were there for 4 or 5 days maybe together, and it worked out for him. So, and he's still married. He sends me a message maybe at least once a year, if not every 6 months. And they live in Mexico together. He was quite a character. He's quite a charming guy. Juan was. And but is that realistic for most guys? Most of the guys who see, like Philip came with me, and even though he met his, he just had a child there about 6 months ago. Like, he actually even screwed up the relationship in the beginning, because I introduced him when we were out clubbing in, it was in January 2019. And yeah, the relationship only really blossomed towards the end of the year. He came on many trips with me. So yeah, maybe the better testimony will be guys who come who, not under pressure, not desperate to find a wife in 1 week, and that's a disaster. You put way too much pressure on yourself, and you're going to put so much pressure on the women, and you're just not going to attract the kind of women you could attract, shall we say, if you didn't have that mentality. You come here, check it out, spend some time, really create a good social circle, improve on your communication skills. That's something I can help you with a lot. Putting you in the right rooms, meet the right people, build up a lifestyle that's at least partially based there. It doesn't mean that you have to relocate or come to Ukraine necessarily during the war or something. You can also go to Poland or Latvia. Latvia is, I think, the best place to go as a single guy in Europe, in my opinion. And so many of these day gamers or dating coaches, they say don't go to the Baltic states, it's terrible, the women are suspicious, it's so hard, because you need this. that region in particular is so built on relationships. Like the best club in the city of Riga has a no tourist policy. They won't let you in if you're a tourist, which is great if you get in, right? Because then you want to have these barriers to entry. Basically, you don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry to be able to. If every Tom, Dick, and Harry could hook up with a supermodel, then we probably wouldn't value that at all, right? There has to be some sort of gatekeeping in order for us to consider it valuable, right? Especially with a partner that we're investing in, especially for a long-term relationship. Obviously, it's a bit different for a short-term relationship, a short-term fling. So those things are great. The fact that so many of them have issues and talk about it means that once you are there with the insider, with me, for example, or you figure out how to do it yourself, then it's going to be even better experience because you won't have those weekend warriors coming in and ruin the reputation of foreigners, or just being there is even competition. Like if you go to a nice cocktail bar in, say, Tallinn, the right one, because you have to know where to go, and it took me a couple of months even to figure it out when I was residing there last winter, then you're going to have 5 or 6, and the only competition you're going to have, at least in that moment, in those 2 or 3 hours you're in the cocktail bar, is the other guys. And yeah, that's not a problem in Estonia. So anyways, I went on a bit of a tangent there. So I think it's one. It's interesting who's asking me, when is the right time to settle for a man versus dating, enjoying without commitment? Well, as men, on average, it's not going to be everybody, but on average, we peak in terms of perceived sexual market value. Did I say that right? SMV. Because now everyone throws perceived before the sexual market value. I've noticed who commentates on this, it is a perceived value. We normally peak between 35 and 45. Now, I'm not sure if I'm just biased because now I'm 47, but now people say it's actually up until 50. So if you are settling down before 35 as a guy, then you probably on average would have had more possibilities to wait longer. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'd end up in a better situation because you're going to be older. Like you wait too long and you want to have a family, then that's no longer possible. Then you should have obviously got married earlier. But if you want to maximize your potential, then you should probably be thinking of settling down only after 35. Because then your value would just on average be higher. I would say personally that I started to hit my peak in terms of my perceived SMV 36. So because I noticed a big jump, and definitely in terms of the caliber of women that suddenly were dating options to me that hadn't been before. Obviously, you become wiser, especially if you're working yourself. Before that, and by early 30s, still pretty good. But I definitely noticed a difference. I also then spent more time in this region. So it's not like you can just move to another country and everything is automatically going to be so much better. But if you know what you're doing and you geomax, as it's known by, it shouldn't be the only reason you move to a country for the long term. I think that's a little bit limiting. But if you move to a region, like here, for example, the average beauty in Ukraine is going to be, if you take it versus the United Kingdom, which is say the average probably out of 10, most guys can understand it. A scale from 1 to 10, in terms of beauty at least, then it's going to be on average about 2 points higher. It may even be 3, to be frank. Of course, if you're living in London, you're in the highest social circle, and you're super rich, and you're in shape, and you're charming already, then you're probably, maybe it wouldn't make a huge amount of difference, maybe even harder, because then you'd have different culture to learn, different language possibly to learn. I encourage you to learn the local language. It's not a sine qua non in the sense that you have to learn it to be successful, but it's going to be a big advantage. Of course, that takes a bit of a time investment, normally a couple of years. You don't have to be living here all the time, but you need to be probably learning it. My clients went ahead and did that, obeyed Conor's law, as I call it, then they call it a game changer. But it is an investment, so just bear that in mind. So I would say that I'm unmarried as well, to answer your question on that. When is the right time to settle down for a man? So I would say over the age of 35, just optimally, you'll have a lot of experience and presumably enough dating experience to make a better decision about who's going to be the best long-term fit or a good long-term fit for you. So that's what I would say. And I would say move to this region in general for a while at least. You can hear me, but the sound is low. Is that a problem that everybody has? Is my sound lower than normal? Just let me know. You had a problem, David, on the last live stream where you had no sound. Okay, that was probably the problem last time as well. So, what hell are the questions posed so far in this live stream? Yeah, well, I was talking about geopolitics, but it's kind of the intersection between these different disciplines that I discuss, and this is why I promote this region. I think it's the best fit if you care about all of these things. So keep your comments and your questions coming in. I will continue to look. I'll just now recap on some of the developments in this region in the last few weeks. So I mentioned Iceland is now considering to reopen its path to becoming a member of the European Union. They've actually set a date for the referendum. They're going to have a referendum about restarting negotiations on EU accession. That's going to be on the 29th of August. So it is possible that Iceland would join the European Union, I would say 2030, because even when they say it's successful, the referendum, decide to reopen these negotiations, they would actually fulfill all the criteria probably pretty quickly. It wouldn't be the most complicated, just about fishing rights probably would be the most complicated thing to renegotiate. But then there's a whole series of protocols, and you have to have meetings that everybody has a veto at, and then all the different member states have to agree and then go to their own governments and pass through parliament. So we'll probably be 2030 at best. But now that they seem to be pushing ahead with it, it is interesting. Hungary. Huge developments. There are parliamentary elections scheduled for next month. It's on the 12th of April, so 1 month away. Viktor Orban, who's been in power, I have to check him, he's 16 years. He's in a lot of trouble. He is not just behind in the polls, but also Polymarket, which is a better indicator over the last 2 years predicting what happens in elections than the polls. They say he's going to lose. He's going to lose power. His party's going to lose power, and it's actually a guy who was formerly his party, who's centre-right. Mike Gab is his name, and he's favored to become the new prime minister. They have gone in hard, blaming Ukraine for just about everything and trying to demonize Zelensky. They've created all these diplomatic disputes, accused Ukraine of interference, plotting against the Hungarian state, and now they actually confiscated some van that had a lot of money in it and arrested a bunch of Ukrainians, so it caused another diplomatic dispute. So Ukrainians are basically, everyone here is waiting for the election next month. Hopefully it still goes ahead. Hopefully Orban is finally kicked out of power by the Hungarian people, and we can go back to some normal diplomatic relations between Hungary and Ukraine. They will definitely improve. And is Ukraine involved in election interference? Well, for sure, Ukraine wants Orban, who is pro-Russian, who keeps running over to the Kremlin or sending his minions over there to negotiate and basically try to undermine the European attempts to support Ukraine. They definitely want him replaced. Whether they're taking active measures, who knows? It's not really clear. But the Druzhba pipeline is contentious. It's where Russia was sending oil to both Slovakia and Hungary, which then helps, of course, finances the war against Ukraine. So we will see what happens next month. Hopefully elections, there isn't some manufactured internal crisis in Hungary to prevent an election. But it is interesting to see a politician in Europe who has boasted about being an illiberal Democrat, somewhat how Vladimir Putin started out in the early 2000s, like we could say about, he was an illiberal Democrat until the first election when he just became a dictator. So be interested to see what happens. That's coming up next month. Also, because, yeah, I've seen another YouTuber try to reach out to Poles who are thinking of coming back to Poland, and I was saying on the last live stream that I even had a Moldovan who had already relocated back, who contacted me for advice. I actually bumped into him in a cafe when it was 2 weeks ago when I was in Chisinau. So I looked at actually what's happening in Ireland. A lot of Poles have left Ireland and moving back to Poland actually. So that's even despite the fact the Irish economy is doing really well. The big problem in Ireland is the cost of housing, because Ireland didn't build enough. We had this disaster with the financial crisis in 2008 where they built too much housing, and then the government since have done the opposite, and now of course the price of housing is huge. We just have for the first time a large population increase in Ireland as well through immigration. So, but Poles are doing the opposite. It's like dropped from 200,000 to 100,000 apparently in Ireland. So about half of them have gone back. I didn't double check what time period, but from its height, it's actually about half. Of course, Ireland overall has more immigration because they're going from other places like Ukraine. There's probably an extra 100, well, there was at one point an extra 100,000 Ukrainians in Ireland. I think many of them have also come back to Ukraine since. So yeah, that's kind of interesting to see that we're going to see just different migration patterns going forward. Poland is becoming the engine of this region. I call it the capital of New Europe. The war in Ukraine has helped it a lot economically. Now they have an issue because Donald Tusk is from one party, and then you've got Nawrocki from, he's kind of technically independent, but kind of to the right of the center-right party. He's very hard right, and that's an issue for, yeah, they're even about the nuclear deterrence. France wants to offer, to give you an example, France wants to offer nuclear deterrence to Poland by stationing possibly in the future nuclear weapons there, so Poland wouldn't be dependent on Donald Trump coming to their aid if, for example, Russia invades, since Article 5 has been undermined in terms of its own credibility by the Trump administration, in particular when they threatened to invade Greenland, which is obviously part of Denmark and an ally. So yeah, but Nawrocki doesn't want that to happen. He wants to remain under U.S. security umbrella purely, which is problematic for Poland's security posture going forward. So yeah, we'll just have to see if Poland is able to continue to make a jump economically and in terms of its influence. I'll bring you back to when I was studying international relations over 20 years ago at Johns Hopkins at SAIS. Everybody was always amused by the foreign policy of Poland because they would talk as if they were already a global power. They just had this attitude all the time that Poland is on a path to being a global power. And a global power seems a bit of an exaggeration right now, but a major European power, they are really in grasp of that. Thing is, now they have to go up to the next level. They won't be able to compete on the cost of labor like before because salaries are rising and Poland has becomes wealthier, so they're going to have to make that next jump. And this split where they have cohabitation with the president from one extreme, basically, well, it's kind of center-right, really, center to center-right, the prime minister, and then yeah, the president is like hard right. It's going to cause a bit of friction and yeah, probably slow down Poland's development compared to what it could be a small bit, but we'll just have to see what happens going for next elections and yeah, whether that continues. But Poland in general, probably for now, continue to rise. If the war ends in Ukraine, a lot of Ukrainians leave, it may hit the Polish economy a little bit because they would lose that part of the population. Part of it will probably come back to Ukraine, although at this point I'm not so sure. People have already been there for at least 4 years. There was already 1 million Ukrainians before the invasion of 2022. Maybe it won't make a huge difference going forward. But Poland will definitely change quite a bit. There's a lot of backlash against just the fact now they attract immigrants as opposed to being immigrants. So interesting country, and I do bring my clients to Warsaw. Rise of Albania. It's kind of mainstream. I was watching Walter's World, the guy I had a little bit of communication with when I first started on YouTube. And yeah, he's been making videos, many of them in Albania. It's like a place for Americans to visit and to relocate to. It's going to become more and more popular because Americans don't need a visa to reside there for 1 year. And yeah, Albania it's nice. It's got great beaches in the south of the country. Wasn't a place I was particularly interested in spending a lot of time in, but to each their own. I think also local culture, if you want to build up local networks, it's problematic, especially opening a business there. I watched some of the channels that cover Albania, and one of the guys, he even got robbed up in the cafe. So yeah, I'm not really sure for this channel whether some of you guys are going to be interested. One of my clients has said that he's considering going to Albania. So when he goes, he can let you know what it's like. But I think if you're a single guy, I would not really recommend Albania. I think it's quite difficult socially. It's a little bit like Georgia, where it's quite conservative, and as a foreigner, it's going to be quite difficult with the local lasses, in my experience. So, not with Albanians in general, but when you go to actual Albania, it's pretty tough to break in. I think a lot of them are just hanging out with each other because it's visa free and the weather is nice in the summer and there's a lot of nice architecture and beaches. But yeah, for a long-term lifestyle, I'm not really convinced by Albania personally. Ben says he's written about Ukraine as a new arsenal of democracy, interceptors to the Gulf, Bodana mobile guns to Poland, co-production UK and Germany. Your thoughts? Yes, I mean, basically it's a consequence of this invasion is that Ukraine is going to be on the cutting edge of military technology, and especially in terms of drones, and it is a democratic country, it's part of the Democratic Alliance. So it's the country making all the progress and making some valuable to other countries, like the Gulf states. They're going to need to buy these interceptor drones from Ukraine. It's going to obviously create a stronger relationship with the Gulf states, maybe with Israel, in spite of Donald Trump constantly hating on Ukrainians and in particular Zelensky and rambling on about having no cards. And then he's going to need to buy interceptor drones from the Ukrainians. It's a clown show in the White House at the moment in terms of foreign policy. But yeah, by making themselves so valuable in terms of their relationships with their allies and potential allies, definitely for Ukraine, it's a powerful arsenal of democracy, because it is going to be Europe's biggest army. People talk about Poland will become Europe's biggest army. It's going to be Ukraine, because they're going to need to defend themselves from a future of Russian invasion. And at this point, I don't really think there are any security guarantees that are going to be credible. Yeah, even a U.S. security guarantee, maybe if it goes through the Congress and gets ratified. But even then, we already had the Budapest Memorandum and the security assurances that didn't amount to much. So the main security guarantee for Ukraine is just to have the biggest army. That's literally it. But yeah, they will become a bigger player, obviously, in terms of the defense industries in Europe. And that's what I was talking about during the summer in Ukraine. Defense industry, agriculture industry, and real estate, three things that you should be looking at in terms of first mover advantage and coming now, or even coming, you should have been here last summer already, obviously, in terms of the drones. So that's what I'll say about that. There were all the points for the updates for the region. And yeah, let me know what you think. Would it put you off going to Dubai in future after what's happened? But I guess most of my audience is fine with coming to this region, so probably not. David says Hungary sees millions gold bars from Ukrainian convoy yesterday. I think it was a couple of days ago. They released the officials who were there, but not the money. The money's missing. So, yeah, it is a pertinent question, because there are just a lot of factors that go into where you're going to relocate to or spend a significant amount of your time. Taxes, climate, local culture, dating if you're single, if you're thinking more long-term family, like schools, healthcare, cost of living, personal safety in terms of petty crime or more serious crime, geopolitical considerations, like is there going to be a war, or maybe you see the war is actually kind of as tragic, obviously, as it is, and having lived through it, it's definitely something I wish had never happened. But maybe coming before it ends and getting set up, buying property. For example, like one of my clients is, I think he's supposed to come next week. He's thinking of going to Mykolaiv, at least he told me. Because the price of property is cheaper there than it's going to be in Odesa. And he thinks that's a better fit for him in terms of the size of the city. Well, obviously, well, it's maybe not obviously, but probably it's going to be a lot cheaper to buy that now, during the war, than it is, afterwards, where everyone will flock in here. So, and that's especially true if you're interested in the dating side. Like, it's not going to be as good when the war ends and there are literally hundreds of thousands of horny guys flooding into Odessa, chasing the girls down in Arcadia and through this historic center. Like my gym, it's a pretty new gym in the center. I changed gym, what was it, just over 2 months ago. I think I'm the only foreign guy who goes there. It's kind of incredible. And after 2 months of being in every gym, it's always the same. Then people become friendly to you, including lots of the gym rats. So even though that's not me, obviously, but I am working on that to a certain extent. So yeah, that's the thing. And now is the time to come, basically. And not after the war. Well, not just after the war, I would say. So there are lots of trade-offs, and that's one of the things that I help through my consulting. If you want to figure out which is the right country for you or right city to spend time in and how to get set up as best as possible there, and you want to try and do it yourself afterwards, or you're just more curious of getting the information before you make a decision, then you can book a consulting call. The link is down below in the description to this live stream. Obviously, if you want my personal mentorship in terms of implementing your plan and coming here on an unforgettable week together and partying also at the right places with the beauties of the region, then you should apply for the in-person immersion, the New Europe experience. And yeah, you guys are also interested in things about whether it's the right city for them, but they want to actually experience the city with me. That is the upgrade, as opposed to doing a solo mission, for example. Obviously, you get a lot more out of it. You'll just, you'll be able to tap into my encyclopedic knowledge of the region and actually have me coach you in real time. For example, we're talking about your communication skills and creating the social circle. And you won't have to figure out where everything is, because that just takes months. I may always give the example of Tallinn. When I went there, like, ChatGPT is not going to be able to tell you where to go out on a Friday and Saturday night. That I can tell you. That took going out. Like, I was there for, I don't even, it was definitely at best by the end of the second month where I figured out everything. So, do you want to invest 7-8 weekends? All these dating coaches, they all give up on the Baltics. It's too hard. That's when you need someone who already knows all this stuff. Other points, keep your questions and comments coming in. Yes, let me talk about a topic I was hoping to avoid. The Ukrainian bride business. Huge development. I made several videos. It's like well over 3 years ago. So it was after the invasion. I said that they're done, they're cooked, that there will be no mass Ukrainian bride businesses, matchmakers going forward. And my prediction at the time was that, well, they'll have to pivot to another region because the Ukrainian women can now leave. So why do they need the matchmaker? It's going to be a very small segment of the population. It can't be a mass industry. It can be a cottage industry. And yeah, Joe from Match Guarantee made several videos disputing that. And yeah, then he suddenly popped up again in the Philippines. Location I mentioned in many of my videos, saying that if guys are, it's kind of a place to go to if, I guess, you are looking for a huge age gap. You're not the most attractive, maybe out of shape, maybe over 50, receding hairline, then that could be the place to go to. It's definitely not coming to anywhere in this region, in my opinion. I think that's, unless you have a reasonable amount of value, then it's going to be very, very difficult in general. There are way more attractive women here on average, but you have to spend a good amount of time and build up a social life. That's why I advocate that approach. Again, to recap, as I said in many of these live streams, the 5 guys that I looked were foreigners, at least in English with channels about matchmaking. They all met their partner, some of them are not married, but partner or wife, by being in Ukraine or having a social circle in Ukraine. They didn't make it through matchmaking. The matchmaking is the business that allowed them to live here and to meet the wife. Not that the matchmaking worked and then they moved to Ukraine. So interesting that he suddenly popped up in the Philippines, saying that, yeah, that Ukraine is very tough as a market, basically, to paraphrase. He was talking about brokies can't succeed in Ukraine. It's kind of a bit odd, since his backstory was that he arrived kind of broke or something in Ukraine and having gotten divorced in Canada. But that was a long time ago as well. Times have changed, it is true, to a certain extent. So yeah, that will be the future. I mean, either they were going to try to target Russians and Belarusians because, well, maybe not so much Belarusians because they can emigrate at least to Poland and Lithuania pretty easy, but Russians obviously have a problem getting to Western Europe and North America, so marriage is one way for them to do that. But for Ukrainians, they can basically move anywhere in Europe, and for a time they were even able to, well, under Biden, be able to move to the US pretty easily. So that seems to be on the decline. Obviously, the number of views and interest in the region has declined quite a bit. So interesting to see Joe popped up in the Philippines. He had a super cringy thumbnail. I have to say, the traditional values and what they, the way they behave, but that's my opinion, that I found it cringy. Yeah, with him holding a pair of panties in his hand, like, yeah, traditional values. But need I say no more about that whole scheme. But yeah, that's what we'll probably see. I did discuss it with one of my clients. He said, no, they will all flood back into Ukraine. And I was like, man, they will claim all the Ukrainian men are deceased from the war, but the reality is, like, there's still going to be more men here than women, because so many women left at the beginning of the war. Many of them will come back, But the guys are at the front at the moment. They're all going to be back and dating again post-war. There's just going to be so many foreigners flooding in. That's my whole point. I just don't see how it makes sense. I think it's going to end up like Estonia, where there was this kind of business up until the very early 2000s, and Ukraine will maybe even join the European Union quicker than we think. So will they still be pitching that at the time? I'm very skeptical that it has a future. But as I said, I made a whole playlist with all the videos, all the reactions. You can check it out if you're interested in the description. And yeah, for some guys who are looking for women who are 40 plus and not looking for a big age gap, because Hard Rocket said that the most they can match anyone with is 23% of the man's, no, 23% lower than the man's age. So for example, I'm 47, the youngest they would ever conceive of matching with is like 36, so in reality over 40. So if you're fine with that, then you can check out those videos and see if it's for you. But I think it's kind of becoming older and very, very, very niche. Also, most of the matchmakers themselves have been doing it for 10 years at least. Seems many of them. So they start out maybe when they were 40 and now they're in their 50s. I think is Joe maybe even almost 60 at this point. So also they can relate obviously a bit easier to people who are older, you know, probably women in their 40s, men in their 50s, kind of maybe late 40s. So I can still work for those people to a certain extent, but it's not going to be the mass industry of before. I'm pretty sure it won't be. It'll be more cottage industry. And yeah, the real key is spend time, build up your perceived sexual market value. And there's a lot of elements that go into it as a man. It's not just about looks, although definitely don't be overweight if possible, and go to the gym, have good eating habits, the normal good grooming, but other things as you move on. Communication skills, huge. A lot of people from the pickup world describe it as game, but yeah, the way that you're able to interact, communication skills, your social circle, also very important, your status, your wealth. So there's just a lot of elements that go into it as a man. And coming here and having a plan, not being building nomads, building a social circle and spending time, providing value in the local community. These are the real ways to succeed with the dating front, in my opinion, and in my experience with clients. Even though we had a few outliers like Juan back in the day who came with me for less than a week, and Philip was also there at the time, that worked out for him. So there can be exceptions, but in general, the guys who succeed, they invest the time, and they come, and yeah, they are the ones who do the best. Because it's also interesting with the data from the dating apps, and I have a video about it, I'll link it down below, it should already be down in the description. Man, we're pretty good at, well, put it this way, from familiar to unfamiliar environments, we don't really change our opinion about whether we find women attractive enough, right? We see 6s is 6s, 4s is 4s, 7s is 7s, 8s is 8, and it doesn't change a huge amount. Women, on the other hand, if it's unfamiliar environment, they see most men as unattractive. They downgrade them several points. That's why the graph is skewed that way. I had it in that video that's linked down below. But if you move from an unfamiliar environment to a familiar environment, then yeah, then this changes. That's why if you were hanging out, you get to know people, you build up a social circle, so your value, perceived value will go up as a man over time. So as long as you're not doing something to negate that, obviously, but this is why spending time is really important for relationships. This whole idea of coming for a week on a romance tour, yeah, I'm not convinced about it. If I were convinced by it because it was a business model that was working in terms of making money, I would have done it myself. But I never believed that was a particularly good way of doing it because the quality, there's a lot of pressure, the quality is going to be low, not so many women who are especially younger and attractive are going to be interested in that. Let's be frank about it. It's a bit weird for women under 35 who's attractive to need a matchmaker because guys approach women most of the time. So for women, it's more about screening options. So why are they there? For us guys who are getting older, yeah, well, our value goes up and we probably hit our peak between 35 and 50. So yeah, it's the time to come, I would say, as a guy and spend a certain amount of time in this region. Anyways, I've waxed lyrical about that. Was there any other? I just found it hilarious, the thumbnail he had. So cringe. Let's see, working on the yeah, I've already mentioned that. And I've also mentioned that, yeah, the girls being suspicious in, even to a certain sense in Poland with Polish girls. I think if girls are immigrants, like they come from Ukraine or from Belarus, they're probably a bit more open. But if you're relying on being American in Poland these days, I mean, there's just so many Americans running around, every ethnicity. Yeah, zero novelty. And here in the Ukraine, as I said, I go to my gym. I think I'm the only foreigner there. Same in the last gym. There was one guy who was Israeli. Told me an interesting story that he'd been trapped under occupation in Kherson. It was pretty horrific, but he managed to get out by being a foreigner. He was able to get out eventually. So, yeah, so there was one foreigner in my other gym, but in general, I rarely hear other languages, just a little bit occasionally in Odesa. I know it's not summer, but still, yeah, so that's where there is going to be a bit of foreigner factor here in Ukraine for sure. And it is the path less traveled. Yeah, just one other thing I thought was interesting, because I screen, you know, I do my kind of weekly scan of what's going on and all these different men's advice on self-improvement. So there are dating services now that will basically clone your voice, not only go on Tinder, but also on Instagram and basically spam girls, pretend to be you, set up the dates. Yeah, what do I think about it? It's like, in the short term, before women find out that guys are doing this, and then they stop to trust any of the messages. Yeah, it's gonna be kind of tricky. I think in general, it obviously has the advantage of someone else doing the work, right? So you've outsourced it. But then they're going to be having conversations that basically probably don't match. Probably higher risk rate that you're going to end up in a date and wasting time on the date with someone who's probably not a good match because you didn't do the communication yourself. But just something that I see happening. Yeah, basically that people can impersonate you with your permission online, and what's that going to do for online relationships going forward? We're going to get to a point probably pretty soon where we're going to start disbelieving huge about what we see online, because we're not going to be able to trust that the video is real, because the AI video is coming up now. They can clone your voice, so voice messages, are going to be able to trust them. There's going to be a lot of fraud with that, and that's also going to seep down into dating as well. I mean, definitely with the PPL, like the paper letter sites, now they can clone the girl's voice. They can probably create an AI video pretty soon, and they will scam guys to the hilt. Be next level scamming. They'll be able they'll be able to pretend to be the girl. They won't even need to pay a real girl to be in on the scam. They will be created. So I see that probably causing problems for Instagram in general going forward. Possibly Instagram will find out about this stuff and maybe even ban it at a certain point. Anyways, I just thought it was interesting that we see technology evolving, and yeah, some of it has affected guys who were interested in Ukraine in the past because they paid for communication online. Of course, they're getting scammed almost all the time by these PPL sites that were basically, just a team of interpreters writing back and forth, or script writers really, and terrible stuff. It used to be a huge scam, especially here in Ukraine back in the day. I'm not sure it still goes on, but I made so many videos pointing out that you shouldn't pay for communication. So if you want to quit your habit, then I guess you can book a consulting call down below if you have questions about our particular website. Yeah, were there ever cases where someone wasn't getting scammed? There was one call I had where, well, it wasn't about a PPL scam, it was another where it seemed he wanted, advice on his relationship. In the end, it seemed with a lot of caveats to be genuine. And then another one where I couldn't say either way. But the rest of them, yeah, normally if guys come to me and it's PPL, well, obviously we know what that was. So that is where we're at this point. Did I have any other points that I written down that I found interesting during the week? Just to again say that I find there's a huge dearth in good men's advice in general. So much of it is like marketing slop. Terrible. The manosphere. I'm glad I'm not 18 or 19 listening to Black Pill and Red Pill. They're both terrible overall. One makes you misogynist, the other one makes you so insecure about your looks and delusional that you need to start smashing your cheekbones to look better, like this Clav guy who's talking about being on lots of drugs as well. Pretty terrible role models. But even for this region, there's very little information that's reliable. especially if you're looking for, to make good decisions on relocation, investment, dating. It's kind of like a desert at the moment. There's so little good information. So quite a transformation for 5 years ago, and now we see much guarantee has gone to the Philippines. So I think that's kind of indicative of the direction. I think then my channel has become more and more pertinent for that reason. It's obviously a very niche geographical location. So let me know your next comments and questions, and then we'll see if I have any other points to address in this week's live stream. So a little bit of a different theme with Dubai. I'm positing what the impact is going to be. Just seeing where have I answered all the questions? Let me just go back up here in the chat. Also, let me know if you like this format where I'm going to discuss the intersection of geopolitics, relocation, culture, relationships, dating, and focus on this region in general. Debbie says, nice t-shirt. Yeah, the Playboy t-shirt. There were plenty of Playboys who were coming here in the past to Odesa Mama, not so many at the moment. So just to recap, my in-person immersion, the application form is down below, or there's more information there as well. You can come for up to a week with me. Most popular places at the moment are here in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and they are the two most popular in the last 6 months in terms of interest. So should be going with a client to Western Ukraine pretty soon. I have many clients that are coming here. Last time I brought a client on a trip was in the summer. We went to Lviv, Chernovtsi, and then to Chisinau, Moldova, and then to here in Odesa Mama on the shores of the Black Sea. It's also in Kazakhstan recently with a client. I will have a video. I thought we would start editing it already, but I guess we'll start next week. From Almaty in Kazakhstan, and also what I filmed in Chisinau, Moldova, Riga in Latvia, and what was it? Again, a second video from Chisinau that will feature Chisinau, the summer vlog from last year. Let me know which cities in particular you're interested in, whether you're still interested in Ukraine. It has made a bit of a comeback. I think there's going to be more and more guys for sure coming here in the next 6 months with the weather changing. I should mention the weather today was fantastic in Odesa. Really, it's not the first day of spring. I think already we've had 1 week of really great weather. So it's a great time to be here. And Russia may try and blow up our energy infrastructure, but it won't have the same impact. The weather's already changed. It's a lot warmer and sunny, so it really feels like spring. We're being rejuvenated, and it promises to be, in spite of everything with the Russo-Ukrainian War, an interesting year here in Ukraine if you come on the ground. So let me know if you are interested in that, or you prefer to go to the alternatives. Basically, since 2022, I've been helping my clients mainly with the alternatives. So we're going to Chisinau, Moldova, to Riga in Latvia, to Warsaw in Poland, and to Almaty in Kazakhstan. Also gone to Vilnius and Kaunas in Lithuania, my client, and to Tallinn in Estonia, and to Astana in Kazakhstan. So they're the places that I've covered. I'm also open to the potential of going to Bucharest, Romania, and Prague in Czechia. Just see how that pans out in the future. So those are the cities that we lived in New York experience in. So if you want to know how to live your best life in that region, and it's just like there's a huge arbitrage opportunity, especially now that so few guys are coming to the region. It's not just Ukraine. Outside of Warsaw, Poland, which is overrun, basically. So I think I decided with my clients that going to the main Polish places didn't really make much sense anymore to socialize already in 2024. It was better to hang out at the Ukrainian and Belarusian diaspora spots, because there's so many great places, cafes, restaurants, bars, clubs, that basically cater to the Ukrainian and Belarusian diasporas, and there's so many of them. Yeah, it just seems like a better option if you go to Warsaw. But in the rest of it, there really aren't so many Western European or North American men who go there, in spite of the opportunities. Even if we're just talking about real estate, I think Latvia is the interesting proposition there. So I think the potential for growth is big with this huge investment from the Emiratis in the waterfront development. And in general, just there's a lot of amazing property to buy there. Got a historic center. I have the real estate video, I'll link it down below. We went with Karina to, country house. What else did we go to? Kind of Old Town development property, and then to the waterfront development there in Riga. I think it has potential to become a major city in the Baltic region, southern Baltics. Biggest airport in the region. It's going to be main, transport hub as well once Rail Baltica is open finally, which will run from Warsaw all the way up, eventually to Helsinki. It'll go under the Gulf of Finland. There'll be a tunnel from Tallinn. So it's going to transform the next decade this region. And if I were a single guy, because guys ask me where to go to Conor, I would go to Riga. But you need to know where to go. You need to be able to get in the right places. You need to be able to build a social circle. But the reward for that is massive. Like, this region has the most models per capita, models per capita in the world. But it's not a pass for bro destination. You can't go there as a brokey, to quote Andrew Tate loves to say it, the brokies. And or did he say normies? I don't remember. I don't watch his stuff for years. But you can't go there unless you have a certain amount of value. It's not going to be super cheap. It's not like going to the Philippines. When it's in the Philippines, might be you'll be paying for the extended family if you get married. That's kind of the reputation. And there's a lot of scamming, I think, that goes on there as well. But it's going to be a culture that's going to be more similar in a way than going to South America or Southeast Asia. But it's not an easy place for someone who's not interested in understanding the social ecosystem of the country, not willing to invest time. The rewards are massive for those guys that are, but it's not an easy place for a weekend warrior, which is good to have that arbitrage opportunity once you make the investment of time and in your knowledge and in your skill set, and make the necessary plan to be successful. And then it's amazing in terms of opportunity. But I guess if it were easy, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry were there. The only barrier to entry would be getting a plane ticket to the Philippines or whatever, right? So you see, that's what happens. Eventually, I watched some other channels and they were saying that Thailand is finished because the women have such high expectations now. It's like, if it's got no barriers to entry, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry will go there. So that's not what you want either. You want a balance, a nice balance. And I think Riga, I told my client who was with me the most in the Baltics, he was amazed when I told him that, because he knew one of the online influencers who was saying don't go to the Baltics, go to Warsaw instead. He's like, our experience is completely opposite. I was like, well, yeah, because they don't know where to go or what to do there. So that's what I'll say about the Baltics. So if you're interested in an unforgettable up to a week with me, then apply down below. And presumably I'll be going back to Kazakhstan in the coming months as well. Kind of disappointed that my client postponed, he probably will change where we go next, because he asked me about coming to Ukraine actually last week. So he decided to go skiing somewhere else, so we didn't go back to Almaty so soon. It's a little bit disappointment, but okay, we'll be here probably in Odesa pretty soon again. I'll go with another client, presumably in the next 2 months, 3 months, to Almaty and to Astana in Kazakhstan. So let me know which ones that you are. Steve says, Odessa, yes, we will be getting over to there again soon. Conor, and intend to hang around for a while. I think the missus gets a bit homesick for Ukraine at times. 100%, Steve. We chat quite regularly. So good that you're planning to come back here. I already discussed match guarantee. I sent you the video. Or I actually didn't send you a video. You watched it yourself. You sent me a message. Yeah. I don't watch any of these matchmaking channels, but because some clients send me their videos when they're noteworthy, But that one was, yeah, what to say. Someone says, Le Vampire. I was in Riga, and I have to say that place is a ghost town. Not at all. I don't know when you were there. Were you there in the summer or the winter? It's not on a Friday and Saturday night. If you know the right places to go, it's pretty phenomenal. But again, it's not an easy place. If you walk around without a plan, you will be thoroughly disappointed by Riga. You will just end up in a tourist trap, and it will suck most likely. I did see one Latino, I think he's Argentinian maybe, who has a channel that's very popular in Spanish, and he kind of goes and films kind of a lot of drunk girls basically in different countries, and he was in Riga. He made it look actually pretty good, but he didn't go to the best places summertime. Well then, either I recommend jumping on on a consulting call or applying for the in-person experience, because if you come with me, it would have been a phenomenal time, because you need to know where to go. I think it's just a very difficult city to show up in without a plan, Riga. One guy who invested in my guide, which I don't have a link to, I guess if you're interested in the guide to the Baltics, maybe I'm just going to roll them all into one eventually. I can send you already the draft. Just write me an email, Conor@conorklein.com. My email address is down below. Yeah, he said, because he was in Tallinn, and he found the guide quite useful in terms of recommendations for the hospitality part, bars, clubs, restaurants, cafes, where to go and hang out, which are the social hotspots, like a local, right? You want to be going to where the high value locals hang out. That's my recommendation. And in Riga, yeah, he'd already been to Riga, and he thought it was fantastic as well. So that's kind of the issue. But that's the feedback that I see online about Riga and Estonia and Lithuania, is that if you show up with no plan, you're going to have a very underwhelming experience. I think the issue in Vilnius is the way they zoned it. It's very obvious where the nightlife is. There's no face control really to a huge extent, so it's kind of overrun a little bit touristically, and there isn't really a great one place, a hidden gem. But Riga is the complete opposite. If you don't know, yeah, you won't find the places in Riga, basically, from what I can see, because ChatGPT isn't going to tell you, because I checked on ChatGPT, and it's worse than walking around randomly. You're more like to stumble across the good places. So yeah, that's one of the things that once you have tapped into my knowledge, obviously it's something I keep guarded, I don't put out for free. The places to go to, I do have the guides. You can either invest in the Moldova and Ukrainian one down below, or write me if you're interested in the one. I also have a draft one for Kazakhstan that I'll finish next time I get back, because I need to update the Astana part of it and then publish it. So if you're interested also in Kazakhstan or in going to Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, then write me an email. I can send you a link for those as well. But if you want to go ahead and purchase the Moldovan and Ukrainian ones, then those links are already down below. That's one of the big things. It's like Le Vampire here went to Riga, and yeah, he just lost a lot of time because he wasn't able to find the places to go to. So that's one of the big things. And in terms of having a crew to hang out with, because otherwise you're going to be, I don't know, maybe you went with a friend, so you weren't building nomads, but if you don't have like the local crew or someone who's going to fit in and create the social connections, it's also a huge handicap. This is something that I struggled with when I first started coming to the region, because I was working as a lawyer in Western Europe, so I had no issue with money, and I actually had a reasonable amount of time off because at my law firm we had like 1 month, and then I worked at the European Commission, so I think I had even more time off. And it was very easy for me when I worked at the European Commission to take long weekends, so especially if there was a holiday coming up, so I traveled a lot, but I was always building bloody nomads every time. And of course I had really good memories of some of the trips. It's easier because I went on so many trips to just have these rose-tinted glasses looking back. There were so many times where, yeah, I didn't like Riga, for example, either, when I went back in the day on my own, not having a clue where to go, figure out the right places, no social connections. It was a kind of a more through serendipity that I built up a social circle here in Ukraine. I've told the story often enough that I missed a train going to Munich. I was going to go skiing with my dad and my sister in the Italian Dolomites, and I was going to go to Munich and then take the train across to Italy, and I missed it from Brussels. So then I couldn't get to Frankfurt that night, and I had a Russian friend who was living in Frankfurt, so I called him up, say, hey, do you mind if I crash with you? I'm going to have to come to Frankfurt tonight unexpectedly. He's like, sure, cool. My friend actually left me his apartment keys, so you can stay at his apartment. It's all free there. So yeah, then we went out and he introduced me a guy from Odesa. He said, oh, when you come in the summer, you need to be connected with this and this person because they also speak German. They have this German meetup in Odessa. And because he plugged me into that, then I made a social circle here, and then this transformed my experience in Odessa Mama over the years. So not only do my clients, although never had clients who wanted to come to Odessa since 2019 was the last time, but the clients who did come, they were able to tap into that. Also my friends who hung out here, yeah, just that great idea of having the social circle, just solve so many issues, and you're not going to be building no mates, and your understanding and your experience is going to be so much better. So there we go. What happens in Riga if you go without a plan? So that's why I'm here with this channel. I fill the gap, the knowledge gap and the experience gap. So you know, if you have three different options. You have the guides, you have the consulting, and you have the in-person experience, which is obviously the most fulfilling way to do it. And yeah, the details, those are all down below in the description. Any more questions, comments? I think, except for Ben, did anyone even comment on the topic? I guess I didn't attract people who are living in Dubai, but maybe on the replay, someone will come out of the woodwork and tell me they're watching from Dubai and their experience. Let me know what you think about this format, whether it's something that you enjoy. The original idea, just once again, was that why I started doing live streams, just to film on the street in Odessa, or other parts of Ukraine during the war, and just show you in real time, kind of do a counter disinformation from the Russian side. Hey, this is actually what it looks like here. And you can judge from yourself, you can see behind what's going on. And you can get my educated insights into what's going on here with my academic background. And here I speak Ukrainian and Russian, so I can tell you what's happening with the war, and it ain't good for Russia in 2026. But they have a little bit of a reprieve with the oil price going up, so they can extend out the war. Other thoughts? Yeah, Donald Trump was saying he'd solve all this in one day. He just didn't seem to have a plan. I wonder if he has a plan or a realistic plan. And in fact, he's only extending the war even longer because he's basically doesn't support Ukraine. Just sells some arms still, which I don't think is really his idea, but it's something he tolerates, and some intel sharing. But Russia is now, if you look at the front lines, they're not even making any progress anymore. It's actually gone the other way around slightly in the last 2 months. So yeah, if he had gotten behind Ukraine when he came into power, he could be celebrating that Ukraine pushing Russia back, and then maybe some agreement to stop it and have an armistice, or even Ukraine fully winning, and then he could have said, look, that sleepy Joe Biden didn't win the war, I won the war, and you could have based in glory. But no, he took another path, so which is trying to force Ukraine consistently to capitulate, and he's got nowhere because Ukraine ain't capitulating. So yeah. But that's probably the least of the issues with now they started a war in the Middle East. Let's see how long it goes on for. Mike says, good format. Dubai was interesting, but not in my plans. Future Iran visit, yes. Love to see it come alive. Yes, hopefully we'll be, well, I do have friends who went to Iran in the past, but hopefully we'll be going back to Iran in different circumstances in the future. I also hope that one day I'll revisit Belarus in different circumstances as well. But for now, it's not even interesting to go there, even if I was up for it. So, yeah. As for parts of the Russian Federation, I guess it's not unthinkable I'll go to some of it in the future. Probably not if it's under the control of Moscow, though. Yes, I know which mic it is. I need to send it to you as well, Mike. Yes, I started sending it, but then I started a live stream. I sent the first part, so it's pronunciation trainer, and then when I get feedback on that, I'll produce the next, I need to think of the next part of the program, and then I'll send that out to you as well for feedback. And once I get that back, I'll generate the rest of the program, and then we'll start the live streams. So, may even start the live streams once, maybe even sooner than that, because yeah, I've talked about it enough. And yeah, originally I was going to do this program with my teacher, but in the end that didn't work out. It just never got made. So, and it's like 2 years since I was making this program, but it's not my main focus. So it's just like a lot of work to figure it out. But I'm delivering it now. I'd much rather have paid a teacher just for the royalties, pay the royalties just to use an existing program. But anyways, that didn't work out and I had to produce my own. So I may end up making more content about the Ukrainian language just because I've already made the bloody program. I'm gonna have to sell it to people after we go through it all, and I can have it edited up so it's, in the future it's like a standalone program. But I guess you are considering also coming to Ukraine, Mike, since you're also learning Ukrainian, would make sense. But you can write there in the chat and let me know what's your motivation for learning Ukrainian. If anyone else is interested in the Ukrainian program, if you go to that resources page, there's a link to it there. And you can go check out at least the payment link and a short description of it. Or you can write me an email if you want more details, Conor@conorklein.com, my email address. You can copy and paste it from down below. A lot of people misspell my first name. Le Vampire said, hey Conor, when you were in Ukraine, do you experience a huge drop in talent due to the country hemorrhaging? It's the most beautiful. Do I think... it's very hard to know anymore. There are just so many beautiful women in Ukraine, in spite of the war, because so many came back, or they're visiting, like they come back for a few weeks or a few months, because it's been 4 years, maybe their families are here. Well, obviously a lot of women left in general. So are the most beautiful ones gone? I guess if you're working as a model abroad, then you're not in Ukraine, but they may have already, even without the war, those kind of girls may have left. There is no shortage of amazing beauty, female beauty in Ukraine in spite of the war. That is for sure. And I guess if you're a guy that doesn't speak Ukrainian or Russian, so you're basically gonna have a smaller pool of options than the guys who do, or built up the social circle here. But the plus is that you don't have the tens of thousands of guys chasing the girls at the moment, your competition. So yeah, I think if you were to balance it out, competition versus the level of beauty is probably, yeah, just as good, to be frank. It's very hard to say. There's just a lot of beautiful women here, and there's hardly any foreigners, and obviously I'm from an allied country, so, and I do a small bit to help Ukraine, and that's not probably not obvious. I'm not fighting in the military or anything. Yeah, it was an interesting dinner as well. You can hear some air defense, but as you see, the electricity doesn't go out very often anymore. I'm kind of tempting fate by bringing that up. Touch wood, but there's no issue right now. So yeah, I would say that overall, there's a lot of guys who are fighting on the front. The Ukrainian military is 1 million strong. Tragically, many guys have been killed, many are invalided. I see in my gym also guys who are recovering from injuries at times. And there are almost no foreign guys here, maybe more in Lviv, but then again, there's a lot more nightlife. There's the pluses and minuses. It's like, this is what I do in a consulting call, or when we're in person, obviously we pick the cities to go to. It's just to find the right balance for what a client wants requires a bespoke program. So nightlife, there's actually a lot going on in Lviv. It's probably the best spot. Summer will be probably Odesa. And there's just a lot of Ukrainians coming from other cities also to Odesa during the summer, because the seaside is the only place that's under Ukrainian control, where there's a little bit of seaside. So yeah, I don't think that's an issue at all, to be frank. The place I go to and hang out, it's pretty incredible all day. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. Barry says, catching you late, need to listen on replay. Just FYI, Joe of Match Guarantee is now pushing the Philippines. I know it was not the topic, pretty funny. Yes, Barry. I already mentioned it because one of my clients sent me his video with that ridiculous, outrageous clickbait thumbnail. Incredible for a guy who preaches traditional values to have that as a thumbnail. But I've noticed as a comment that both, yeah, the only two that are kind of, is Match Guarantee even relevant now if they're in the Philippines? But we'll say it is with declining relevancy, and Heart Rocket, like also on IG, Heart Rocket have some videos, and I was surprised. It's a bit vulgar almost. the way they speak. And Joe does the same in his videos. So I guess they know their target demographic, and having those kind of thumbnails, they're trying to trigger the reptilian brain with this kind of, kind of content of ill repute almost. Just, there is not the right terminology to say ill repute, but kind of more salacious content in terms of their presentation. Yeah, surprising, because they harp on, well, at least Joe harps on about traditional values all the time. But it seemed like he was attracted to Philippines because of the huge age gap, which is true. This is what I've been saying for a few years. If you look online, there's guys, I forget the guy's name, because I used a clip out of his video once or twice, but he was like overweight, probably late 40s, and his wife was like 20 from the Philippines, but he met her on an island somewhere, and he's the big fish in that small pond. So yeah, for those kind of guys, that's a place to go to, and I guess that will be his main focus, because he was talking down basically Ukrainians all of a sudden, doing a 180, that it's very tough. But he had clients who were on one of his live streams, and they said they had 0 dating options in the US. So it's like, yeah, you can't go from 0 to hero. You can jump 2 points, but yeah, if you have no options back home, yeah, unless you're willing to come, invest time in Ukraine, provide value to local community. Those guys, if they move to Ukraine, because presumably they have money in business, if they're able to do that in Ukraine and build up a social circle as a result, they probably would have done reasonably well. But yeah, if it's just showing up, turnkey, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need to make the investment, which again, because it's a barrier to entry, means that it's going to be a higher return on investment. It's going to be better once you overcome those obstacles than if you go to the Philippines. Like I did have a guy I bumped into who came up to me during the summer because he recognized me from YouTube. I think that's why he spoke to me in the beginning, or maybe we just had a glass of wine. Well, anyways, we met at a wine bar, and he subsequently moved to the Philippines, and he wrote me. He said the girl's not as pretty, but he can use English all the time. He's no issue meeting women, as opposed to Moldova, where he found it very difficult. He didn't have a social circle, didn't speak Romanian or Russian, and even though the women are a lot better looking and culturally a lot similar, right, because they're European, and he's British, as opposed to going to the Philippines, but he didn't have a huge foreigner factor, I guess he gets there. So he was 40, he wasn't like in his 60s or 70s looking for a massive age gap, but he said, yeah, he was dating women under 25, and he's 40, so that's more, it was easier for what he's looking for. But he did concede that, yeah, in terms of looks, it's not Moldova, or it's not Ukraine, or it's definitely not going to be Latvia. So that's the trade-off. But for his clientele, for Joe's clientele, it probably makes a lot of sense. Again, they know their customers better than I do. So I guess all this stuff with the, yeah, I mean, so cringe. Joe holding up a pair of panties on a thumbnail. Yeah, I won't be able to unsee that. So, yeah, it is what I predicted would happen, more or less 3.5 years ago. He argued about it a lot, disputed it, but I guess that's part of the process, acceptance. There is only one. I mean, there's still romance tours organized here by, I guess, the AFA. I can hear the air defense. So, yeah, in general, after 4 years of this, my heart rate doesn't even raise. It's just like hearing the TV in the background at this point. If it's a real significant drone attack, which we haven't had since this Operation Epic Fury, that is the name of it, has started, then I will just end the live stream and go to the shelter. But it's probably fine. It's just, I can hear air defense is probably a similar way. Actually, I can check on the apps here what exactly it is. All right, they shut one down, because I can see the message here in Telegram. Let me go to the last one. Minasedin. So okay, that's pretty far away, that one. Need one with a map. Yeah, they're down in the south towards Satoka. There's one in the north of Odesa. That's what I can hear. So just north of where I am. So it's not any concern for now. More questions. Levon Piras, and in general throughout the country, Ukrainians receptively towards me. How do I find the receptivity temperature level to be these days now that the war has been going on and not many foreigners running? Yeah, there's definitely foreigner factor in that sense. As I said in my gym, everybody's super happy. They're like, whoa, there's a foreigner comes to our gym, basically. So, and yeah, everybody, with the gyms, it's like my experience is like once you've been going there regularly for 2 months, people become very friendly. But in general, the cafes that I go, that I hang out, yeah, it's pretty much people are super friendly. A lot of people want to practice their English, which was not the case before as much. But I guess maybe because there's so few foreigners around them, yeah, they want to. I want to practice my Ukrainian. I mean, Russian I don't care about speaking because it's not that. It's of declining use in general. I already speak it fluently, so well enough at least that focus improve my Russian is not really going to produce, say, a return on investment for me personally, but improve my Ukrainian practice, definitely. So yeah, definitely very positive towards foreigners. If you're asking just about the dating sense and not just the general reaction, then yeah, it's definitely easier than before from that point of view, because there's always been a percentage of girls who are interested in foreigners, it's going to be a minority, and now they just have less options walking around in Odesa or anywhere else, right? It's just you're more of the novelty factor in that sense than you would have been in 2021 or 2019, when there's, like, as I always joke, the hordes of horny foreigners chasing the girls up and down the seaside here in Odesa. It's a very different atmosphere in 2026. So yeah, I would say quite high. I've always found it pretty receptive, but I've always spoken, well, for a while I've spoken good Russian, and now improving Ukrainian. But I should have made more progress with my Ukrainian. Maybe finally producing this language course, it'll mean that my Ukrainian will also improve. So, any more questions or comments? Again, if you want to go deeper on these things, you have a few options. If you're new to my channel, to this whole idea of coming to spend time in this region, especially if you're a single guy and you have reasonably high value, then because it's not a place really for passport bros, you can't be super broke because it's not that cheap in this region, although Ukraine and Kazakhstan are a bit cheaper with some foreigner factor. So it's kind of definitely for going to Poland or for the Baltic states or even Moldova, definitely not passport bro territory. Maybe there's a little bit of an argument for that in Kazakhstan and here in Ukraine, because prices are lower and there's less foreigners, and there's a little bit of foreigner factor. So if you're new and you're still doing your research, I have a new link. It's down below in the description to the live stream. It's on my website, conorklein.com, and it's the resources page. There you'll get some interesting playlists to look through my content, also my guides for coming to Ukraine and to Moldova, and also my language programs for Ukrainian and for Russian. Ukrainian one's about to start, so now's the time to sign up for that if you're so inclined. And if you want to go deeper on this, and you've already done some research and you want to have some pertinent questions answered, or you have some, in the past, a lot of guys contact me because they wanted advice about their relationships. Maybe you're already in a relationship with someone from the region, or you've been chatting to someone online, then we can discuss that on a consulting call, or you want a bespoke plan for deciding where to come in the region. That was the last consulting call I did with a guy who was debating which part of the Baltic states would basically be the best fit for him, because he had some experience, but to save time and to know how it would work out, he had some really particular questions that were more business related as well. So you can tap into my knowledge in this region by booking a consulting call. But if you want to come with me in person, implement your plan for coming to a city in the region, then we can do that on the New Europe experience. So that will save you just a huge amount of time, emotion, wasted maybe on the wrong people, particular women, and you don't need to worry about getting scammed. Although scamming is a little less of a concern than it was in the past with the places that we're going to. I mean, this used to be Scam Central, Odesa Mama, back in the day. Yeah, and St. Petersburg as well, when we went in 2019. So I guess that probably is a bit of a Scam Central, but anyways, I don't advocate going to the evil empire for now, to Muscovy. So we would go to Tallinn, probably for a first trip on the Europe experience, I recommend Riga in the Baltic states, and Almaty, Kazakhstan, amazing. It's really like the hidden gem, hardly anyone talks about it. Or we will go, if you're interested coming here to Ukraine, then this is definitely your best option to go and meet in person. Not only will you stay safe as possible, but also you'll have me here with you on the ground to oil the wheels, the social interactions, and definitely in terms of knowing where to go and navigating everything, it's essential to come with someone to Ukraine. Otherwise, the other options are Warsaw in Poland, Vilnius in Lithuania, Tallinn in Estonia, and we're leaving out Astana in Kazakhstan. In other places. Application form down below, so you can come with me in person and have an unforgettable up to a week, unless we roll over and do 2 weeks back to back, which some of my clients do. Okay, Love Factory Sweatshop asked me, if Telegram goes away, what social media is big with girls in Eastern Europe after Telegram? Well, Instagram. But you should be using Instagram, in my opinion, with women you meet, because then you can display the value through the stories and show your lifestyle. So when you say Eastern Europe, I guess you mean also here in Ukraine or Poland. I mean, if it's about the fact that Russians are cutting off Telegram, well, then they're going to cut off everything. So it's kind of, there wouldn't be anything you'd be able to use them except for their own controlled, what is it called, Max now in Russia. Yeah, going to Russia. Not a hope. So any last questions or comments right now or forever? Hold your tongue. Or if you want the more in-depth, bespoke stuff, book a consulting call down below. My website is there, conorklein.com/consulting for the consulting, /application form for the New Europe experience. You're welcome. And yeah, go to the resources page if you're beginning this journey. There's a lot of great information there. Some for free, some for a trivial amount, and you can get started with doing your research. Yeah, as a parting comment, it's just because we unfortunately have to talk about the matchmakers again with Match Guarantee doing this thing in the Philippines. Yeah, it's amazing to look back. I've been doing this for so many years with this channel, and to see so many clients who've gotten married or started a family, it's pretty wild. Actually, when I started with this pivot in 2018, it wasn't the objective. Guys wrote to me, asked me to set up a matchmaking service and do romance stories, but I wasn't interested. I was never convinced by the principle of it. Although I do say that it can work for certain guys, and I've had consultant clients that has worked for, but in general, I just don't think it's a particularly effective way to coming here and having a successful dating life. And yeah, it's just amazing to see the families that are being born, that have been created as a result, even though that's not the objective. And as one of my clients who was here, whose wife is from Zaporizhzhia, said, he was with me in Kharkiv in 2021 on the then Zara experience. Yeah, it's just like when he came, he just gotten divorced. He wasn't like in a rush to meet someone, get married again, so he wanted to come with me and have my guidance and my mentorship. And yeah, then he got married. He actually got married very quickly afterwards. So just shows how things can pan out. But again, it's the guys who spend at least a bit of time. Like, he didn't spend years hanging out with me, but yeah, he did spend a couple of months in Ukraine. And he felt like, yeah, this idea of doing the matchmaking is just too much pressure. And yeah, the value of those dates you're going to have arranged compared to what you could get if you came in person, yeah, it's very low. So it is what it is. All the guys who run the matchmaking agencies, are not all of them, but most of them, they actually moved to Ukraine or had a social circle here. Liv Vampire asked me, do you find a huge difference between Odesa and Lviv in terms of beauty saturation throughout the sea? It's kind of a strange term, beauty saturation. If you know where to go and hang out, then both are going to be great. I think the nightlife is probably a bit better in Lviv during the winter, because there are places you go party all night in, than in Odessa during the winter. So it just depends how you're planning to socialize. During the day in the cafes, it doesn't really make a big difference. I know the places here in Odessa that are just like that have beauty saturation. Yeah, during the afternoon and early evening. So yeah, in Lviv are they the same concentrations? Yeah, maybe you need to focus more on the nightlife in Lviv than on the daytime stuff. Whilst in Odessa, it's maybe the opposite. But during the summer, it will be, you know, I guess we won't be at night because things are closed, but, you know, it will be up until 11 p.m., 11:30. But it will be off the charts this summer in Odessa. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting. I spent a lot of last summer in Moldova. I spent 2 months in Chisinau. Also great. Love those electronic music parties in Chisinau during the summer. Pretty phenomenal. So, love that. Edited up pretty soon, that video. So, any final comments? Le Vampire, you probably should consider investing, going deeper on this stuff. All the links are down below, since I'm curious. And yeah, anyone else? If you have a last question, last comment, drop it now. Otherwise, you can contact me, Conor@conorklein.com. Email address down below, all the links. And any parting comments on the situation here in Odessa? Yeah, it really feels like the city is being rejuvenated. It's that season, springtime. And yeah, it's in spite of the war, in spite of it going into its now 5th year with this invasion, this phase of the war, it's a particularly interesting time to come here, and it seems more and more interest in it than in the previous years. Returning to Ukraine, either for a trip, and if you are coming, do your best to support Ukraine, even if it's just spending money on local businesses. Even better if you can document it, keep Ukraine in the minds of your friends and family. You don't have to be a big influencer. And again, even more kudos if you can help with the humanitarian effort and with the national defense effort here. And yeah, it's interesting to reflect on the last few years. And if this war wouldn't have happened, would I have spent so much time in Riga? Unthinkable, but it worked out pretty well. I have amazing memories from some trips there, also with Paul, who is getting married pretty soon. And our clients in some of my videos in the video for Conor's Law. Yeah, I love Almaty. Almaty is one of my favorite places to hang out in Kazakhstan. It was great to get back there again. Hopefully it won't be too long. Hopefully by the end of next month we'll be back for another trip. And yeah, Warsaw, I guess it was a surprise I spent so much time there, but it faded out of popularity. It was really popular in 2023, first half of 2024, and except for the one client he still hasn't told me we're actually going, but he already paid me to go for the in-person experience, and still has a thing for going to Warsaw, so I guess we're going to go back soon. It's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit. So yeah, Chisinau. I guess I had already been to Chisinau with a client. Philip and I went in 2019. So I had been there one trip, but he spoke Romanian because his mom was Romanian, so it was a little bit different. But we had a decent time, but now the city is so much better than it was back then, because that's already, yeah, it's over 6.5 years ago. Wow, it's crazy that I've been doing this for that long in this particular niche that has evolved. So yeah, plus and minuses, obviously, I had so much invested in Ukraine with this channel, especially from 2020 to 2022 with the pandemic. I basically had a channel that was focused nearly entirely on Ukraine. I didn't leave during the pandemic. We were here. It was just the second day of the invasion that I evacuated. So yeah, just thought if you're interested in Ukraine back in the day, I'll have this library. If you go and look at the playlist from Ukraine, it's on the front page of the channel. So what do I think of Rzeszów in Poland? I have only been there once, because I flew into the airport when I was coming to Ukraine. I spent 1 day, so I can't really comment on it. It's a small Polish town near to Ukraine. Yeah, also Lublin, I spent 2 weekends in, but it was many years ago. Now when I go to Poland, Yeah, I haven't really traveled around Poland. I just focused on Warsaw because I was going there with clients at one point once a month for like maybe 13, 14 months. So, and then there doesn't seem that much interest anymore. But Rzeszów, yeah, small town and a nice square in the center. And yeah, these smaller towns, obviously nightlife is not like in Warsaw. I thought Gdansk was really nice during the summer. Nightlife was cool. But I went many years ago. It was like probably a decade ago at this stage. And Kraków I've been to a few times. I did film in Kraków, that video with Ari Martel back in the day, where we did the street interviews. But it has even bigger problem with pollution in the winter apparently, Kraków, and it's very touristic in the historic center. Bit of overkill for me personally. Yeah, I never really met someone who thought that Kraków was a better fit for them than Warsaw. So it would be nice, yeah, to do a full trip around Poland, I guess. But that would be more for my own pleasure than maybe for business with this channel. But let's see, if there's suddenly a return to you guys wanting to do the in-person experience in Poland, then we can discuss that. In other cities, I think Gdansk would be of interest. I did have one of my clients who came with me to Warsaw. He did talk about Gdansk and then seemed to, yeah, and we went to Almaty together. So obviously that was a better option, I think, at the time. But anyways, you can write me at Conor@conorcline.com. Any final questions before I close out? I'll give it another 30 seconds. Any other things that can come up? Should I make a reaction video to match guarantee? No, I'm not planning to make one for now. Maybe it will be something I'll comment on. I don't know if I do another video this year with Yelena or not. Normally do one video a year with her where we discuss what's going on with this Ukrainian bride business, but I don't know. I'll have to chat to her and see if it's worth doing another one. I think the interest in it is fading. I mean, if match guarantee is relocating to the Philippines, then that would be another sign that, yeah, it's on the decline even further. So, yeah, maybe at a certain point I'll make some sort of reaction to what's going on with that. Final, yeah, I've already got over 30 seconds. So I'm going to close it out there. If you're watching some replay, drop me a comment and a question, or reach out to me at Conor@conorcline.com. Again, lots of great links down below in the description. Go through them, and hopefully we see each other in person here in this region, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's one of the alternatives, like, as I said, Latvia, Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Moldova, Kazakhstan, or maybe you want to go to Czechia or to Romania. Keep your comments and your questions coming, and we can discuss in greater depth on a consulting call or on the in-person experience if you want to have my mentorship in person, which is going to be the most effective way to helping you set up your baller lifestyle here in New Europe, the part of Europe that I think has the most arbitrage opportunities for high value, especially single men, but you don't have to be single. You could also be, normally it's going to be with someone from this region, and I can get you on the right path and just save you so much time, money, and wasted emotions, as I've already said in this live stream. So, do побачення from Odesa Mama on International Women's Day. Maybe I could have commented on that a bit more, but you needed a bought flowers already. If you haven't, then send a message wishing women that you know from this region a happy International Women's Day, and maybe put a flower emoticon. If you had a significant other and you didn't give them flowers, well, then you're probably in the doghouse already, so it's too late to warn you, unless there's a big time gap and you're back in the States maybe, and you can still rush out to a florist and give flowers today. So on that note, do побачення. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.